Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the FIDE Women's Grand Prix 2024 to 2025. Now this is the event that is held in Monaco. Now first of all, I'm going to introduce this event briefly to you guys. So the Monaco FIDE Women's Grand Prix is the third of 6 events of the 2024 to 2025 Women's Grand Prix cycle, and which is one of the qualification paths for the next Women's Candidates tournaments. So this is actually a very important tournament for those who are participating, because the better you get, there's a greater chance that you will to be able to participate in the Women's Candidates tournament. Now, in this event, the Monaco FIDE Women's Grand Prix, we have 10 players participating, and they are Bibisara Azabayeva, Alessandra Koryashkina, Sarah Kadam, Kateryna Lagno, Elisabeth Paehtz, Harika Dronovali, Koneru Humpy, Alessandra Koscieniuk, Batkuya Mongonto, and Tanjong. Well, I'm not sure if I pronounced all of the names right, but you just have to know that these 10 players, they are extremely strong from different countries, but are all of the top women's chess players in their countries. So of course, this field is really competitive and not easy to play in. Well, the time that I am recording this video, already 6 rounds have been played. There are 9 rounds in total, so it is a 10-player single round robin. And here we have the schedule where you guys can see that it is between February 18 and 28, 10 days. And then here there's the format. As I've said, it's a 10 players round robin, and the time control is 90 minutes for the first 40 moves, followed by 30 minutes for the rest of the game, with a 30-second increment per move starting from move 1. Players earn Grand Prix points according to their final standings. Now, this is the prizes. The Monaco FIDE Women's Grand Prix has an 80,000 euros prize fund. Based on the event's final standings, players also earn Grand Prix points. The 2 players with the most Grand Prix points at the end of the 6-event series earn spots in the next Women's Candidates tournament. Now, this is the 3rd out of 6 events, and there are still going to be 3 more events left in 2025, of course, held in different places. Now, already, as I've said, 6 rounds have already been played. And today, our main topic, our main star of this video is none other than Kateryna Lagno. She is like a true chess, like superwoman. Why did I say that? Just have you ever heard of a female chess player who, after becoming a mother of 4, still competes at the highest level and regularly defeats world-class opponents? That's right, we're talking about Lagno, and she is the only one. Lagno's thinking speed is absolutely incredible. Sometimes it feels like her brain is just running on overdrive. She's one of the strongest rapid and blitz players in women's chess, and having won multiple World Rapid and Blitz Chess Championships. So, do you want to know why she loves faster time controls? Well, because her kids are too noisy and she can't focus on classical games. Well, of course you know that I'm just kidding, but she has said that raising her kids have actually strengthened her concentration. Instead of them being too noisy and then just decreasing her concentration, instead, they actually kind of helped her. So many people wonder how she manages both motherhood and a professional chess career. Well, in an interview, she put it simply that way, that when I play, I focus completely on chess, thinking about nothing else. And when I'm home, I focus being a good mom. That's what she said. Now, talking about time management, her ability to balance both worlds might be even more impressive than her chess skills, honestly. But, both of them, both being a mom, and also her chess skills are all really impressive. Just the time management and everything. She manages to balance all of these things, and then there's just no problems with both sides, and that's just really impressive. And Lagno's playing style is sharp and solid. And I mean, she never backs down against stronger opponents. And as of now, the tournament is already halfway through. There are still 3 rounds left, and she's currently leading the standings. Of course, just in a half-point lead, but already she is playing extremely well. And if she keeps on playing well, she might be able to become the champion. Now, an incredible performance by her. So let's take a closer look at one of her games and see how this Supermom dominates the chessboard. Now, I've already introduced this tournament, and now let's jump into the game. This is a game from round 4 where Kateryna Lagno is playing with the white pieces against Elisabeth Paehtz, a very strong women's grandmaster from Germany. And let's start this game. So Lagno starts with d4, and Elisabeth plays d5. We have c4, e6, and knight c3. So here, h6 was played. Well, I mean, typically speaking, this is not considered as a very standard move because just by looking at it, it looks kind of strange. The main moves are actually like knight f6, bishop b4, or even like playing like taking on c4 are all possibilities. But h6 was played instead, so this might have been Elisabeth's home preparation. Like she might have just prepared this opening, or that maybe she always plays this. And in the game, Lagno decided to play bishop f4, developing the bishop and putting some pressure on the c7 pawn there. And here we have knight f6, developing the knight. Well, now it kind of makes sense because h6 use might be able to prevent bishop g5 ideas. But normally, we don't usually play h6 that early. In the game, we have c5, like blocking up and not allowing black to take on c4. In the game, we have knight h5, attacking the bishop. The bishop now retreats back to d2. There's no problems with all these moves. And here, Elisabeth decides to push e5. Now, e5 is a move that is really interesting because you have already played e6, and now that you're also playing e5, it seems that you're like wasting a tempo, but e5 turns out to be not that bad because you're opening up the diagonal for your bishop, also putting some pressure in the center on these pawns. So e5 could be a very big challenge to white if white doesn't really like react accurately. Well, in the game, Lagno, she played the best move, e3, just simply defending this pawn. And I mean, if black were to take back, you just take back with the pawn and keep the defense on the c5 pawn. And in the game here, black decided to play g6. So actually we can see that Elisabeth, like, the way that she is developing and putting up all this structure in this game is kind of weird. And already, as we can see on the time here, she only has 46 minutes left on the clock. So of course, this is already something that she doesn't know. I mean, she just spent about like 20 minutes on this move. So already, both players, I can tell they're already out of their preparation and into something that they are completely unfamiliar with or a little bit unfamiliar with. And then the game g6 was played, so black's idea is to fianchetto this bishop onto this big diagonal, but it takes a lot of time here. And in the game, Lagno immediately opens up the center with d takes e5. And as we can see, black is spending too much moves on pushing all of these pawns and not really developing any important pieces. And the king is still in the center, and it could become a huge weakness in the future if black is still developing really slow and the king won't be able to castle. So here in the game, white is already up a pawn. So now here black decides to play bishop c5, but then you're not going to fianchetto the bishop, then why even push g6? Well, I guess your idea is to defend this knight, but then why not just play something else like knight fd7 at that point? So all of these moves are kind of not working together, and of course g6 somehow, kind of weakens these dark squares on the king side. And here queen b3 was played by Lagno, so she is developing her queen, maybe preparing for some long castle ideas, and also attacking the pawn at the same time. Elisabeth here decides to play c6. Well, this is a really nice move because if you play something else, then you simply lose this pawn. Let's say if you want to castle first, but then after queen d5, queen e7, even though maybe black might be able to get this pawn back, but still, after a couple of accurate play like knight f3 or something, knight c6, black now at this point might be a little bit faster in development, but white is up a really healthy pawn, or at least up a pawn that is not able to be taken at this point. So white is doing better here. And that is why in the game, Elisabeth, instead of trying to get the king to safety first, decides to play c6, which is a really nice move. And then we have long castle on the board. Now, long castle is kind of aggressive because this just simply shows that I'm not going to go for something really solid or positional. After this move, after I got my king to safety, I am going to start pushing the pawns in the center immediately and attack your king, who is actually having some trouble here. In the game, Elisabeth decides to play bishop e7 back, but again, as I've said, she needs to develop her pieces. And here, the best move is to go b5, and also like preparing for a5 ideas. Since white's king is castled on the queen side, black might find it helpful to start pushing the pawns and launch a queenside attack, as well as, maybe knight a6, knight c7 ideas, or bishop b7 ideas, bishop a6 ideas, to develop her pieces. And in the game, however, bishop e7 was played, but as you can see that black is just playing moves repeatedly. She has played this bishop 2 times, and now the bishop, somehow just wasted a tempo. Here, Lagno decides to play for knight f3, first of all, developing the knight. And here, Elisabeth, she developed her piece with knight a6. Well, this is considered as a mistake here, and the reason for that is white can just simply take here on a6, and black takes back, of course, but now there's queen a4, and the queen is now attacking the c6 pawn as well as putting pressure on the a6 pawn. So now if you defend with bishop b7, you see that even though the bishop is defending 2 pawns at the same time, not just that this bishop has become extremely passive, but also that this king is still not castled yet, and white can push e4, and simply black's center is collapsing, the rook is eyeing the queen, and there's just too many tactics that is going to be happening. So that is why here bishop a6 kind of just, have a really big advantage. After queen a4, probably black's best move is to go short castle, but then you can take the c6 pawn if you want, but you can also go e4 first, and either moves, white is much better here. But instead, in the game, Lagno decides to play e6. Now, this is actually a complete miss, and after this e6 move, suddenly black is doing completely fine because black can just simply take back with bishop takes e6. Now, if white takes on b7, there's knight c5. The pawns are equal, and now, even though white can take a pawn on c6, but then here black can actually play king f8. This might look a little bit insane, but you see that now all of these files are widely opened on the queen side, and it could be an advantage for black's attack on the queen side towards white's king. And at the same time, black's king is completely safe with all of these pawns defending it. And also black is much faster in development, as you can see. But probably that is just something full of a lot of calculation, way too complex, and in the game maybe Elisabeth doesn't want to sacrifice a pawn for some compensation, and instead she decides to play knight c5 first. But here it simply gives white the chance to first of all take on f7 with check, and after king f8, then queen c2 back. The reason that, black cannot take on f7 is because, actually taking on f7 is the best reply here. It is slightly better than king f8. Still white is going to play queen c2 now, but at least you have, the material is equal, and then you can probably play something like bishop d6, trying to get the queen out or something. The king is at least safer. But here, if you play king f8, there's just a pawn right in front of you. Sometimes you guys might have heard the saying that your opponent's pawn is your pawn at some point, because it does help to block some files and everything to keep your king safer. But at this point, this doesn't really work, because after queen c2, the queen is now attacking the g6 pawn, and again, black needs to defend it. And in the game, Elisabeth played bishop f5 here, but simply missing this next move, which is a really nice move played by Lagno, and she played e4. Of course, you really have to calculate a lot and to have the courage to play this move, because you're like sacrificing a pawn. Well, in the game, d takes e4 was played, but this is not the best way to take this pawn. The best way is to take with a knight, and after you take bishop takes, you get bishop d3. Instead of moving the queen away, you play bishop d3. Now, this is kind of like forcing a trade, because if you move the bishop away, like if you take this knight here, then after g takes f3, this g6 pawn is going to fall. So here, after takes, bishop d3, black has to take on d3, but after queen takes d3, the g6 pawn is again hanging, so let's say black plays queen d6 or something, but now white gets this rook out. For black, it's really hard to take on f7 because there's knight e5 coming, but if black doesn't take it, then this pawn is going to limit black's pieces' activeness and gain control of all of these really important light squares. So white is doing much better here, and black also needs to defend accurately in order to try to save the game. So black has a lot of pressure, but still, it is better. Knight takes e4 is better than d takes e4, because after d takes e4, now there's this really nice follow-up, which is g4, also being found by Lagno. And here we have bishop takes g4, and here actually there's a move that is winning immediately on the spot, and it is knight takes e4. Just simply, well, it is like a tactic, because it allows bishop takes f3 and forking these two rooks as well as this knight, but you just simply take on c5, and suddenly you realize that black cannot really take any of these rooks, because there's knight e6 coming and winning the queen. King takes f7, but knight takes d8 is with check, and black needs to take instead of wanting to take on c2. But she is under attack, she is under a check, and she needs to take back, and this is going to be winning for white. So here, that is why you cannot take the rooks, but if you take this one, then there's queen c5 also with check, and this is just falling apart. King f7, bishop c4, and all of these pieces are just eyeing towards this king. It is game over, basically. So in the game, knight e4 is going to be winning directly on the spot. Probably you'll have to play something like knight d3 even. Or if you take with knight e4, then after queen e4 takes, not only does white successfully defends the f7 pawn, but now that bishop c3 is coming, attacking the rook as well as attacking the queen, this is game over once again. But instead, in the game, Lagno decides to play knight e5. This is the second best move, but the only move to win is to play knight e4. All of the other moves are kind of giving the advantage back. Here, Elisabeth decides to play bishop takes d1, the best reply, and knight g6 was played, king g7. Well, king g7 is not the best move, but king f7, you can just actually take this pawn without worrying about anything. Knight takes, queen takes, and after, for example, bishop c4, the king can just simply get back to e8. This is, of course, a lot of calculation, but after king e8, black is suddenly doing completely fine, and with even more accurate play, a couple of more accurate replies, black is going to be able to save the position. But instead, in the game, Elisabeth decides to play king g7, and here the main difference is that there's queen takes d1, and you cannot take on g6 because there's rook g1 check. And if you take, well, there's queen h5, and everything is falling apart. And if you play bishop g5, there's h4 or something. It's still really complex, but I think black is under a ton of pressure here, because this king is just up the board and even moving towards the center like king of the hill. So just too much pressure for black. And here Elisabeth decides to play e3, which is another mistake, but sometimes you just make mistakes during defense, defending really hard like really hard positions to defend, and sometimes mistakes just happen. And here Lagno just simply takes this pawn, and we have king takes g6, but now there's rook g1 check, bishop g5 blockading the check. Now h4 was played, so white is now like winning the material back. Knight f6, but you just take the bishop, it's a free piece, h takes g5, and here queen c2 check, another really nice follow-up by Lagno, king f7. All of these moves are kind of forced for black. Black basically can't do anything, and here white is just gonna throw all of the pieces into the game. Bishop c4 first, and after king e7, queen f5, the queen is sliding into the position as well, joining this party. Here queen d6 was played. Well, now here actually another position where it's kind of critical, where there's only one move that wins. All of the other moves lead to equalization. Like the position is now equal if you play all of the other moves besides this move. Well, actually, the best move is to play rook d1. But this is like a quiet move. But suddenly you just realize that after this move, everything is winning. Because then you can start pushing e4 and then go bishop g5 or everything. And it is unstoppable. But I mean, rook d1, this is not a move that comes to your mind. I mean, usually when you're playing a position like this, you just realize that, oh my gosh, all of my pieces are just like in front of my opponent's king's face, and it looks like that I'm gonna reaching checkmate at any point. And I just want to win really fast with all of these checks, takes, and tactics. But sometimes you just don't realize the importance of a few quiet moves or a few moves that are coordinating your pieces. Sometimes these moves are the most important ones. Well, in the game, Lagno, first of all, she played e4. This is the second best move. And here, but it actually allows black to play queen d4, which here Elisabeth found the best move here, queen d4, and attacking the rook as well as the bishop. Well, of course, white is not losing because white still has rook f1. If you take my bishop, I'm going to take your knight. So, of course, black won't do that. And here, black needs to, in order to save the position, black needs to have a really accurate follow-up, and the best move is to go rook a f8. Actually, both of these rooks going to the f8 square is fine, but in the game, however, Elisabeth here decides to play knight cd7, which is a mistake, a blunder actually. Because even though it is defending this knight and still threatening to take on c7, c4 here, but it just simply allows bishop takes g5. And then here, if you take on c4, again, you face bishop takes f6. So here, Elisabeth realizes that she needs to defend this knight with the rook, and she played rook hf8, but she is just one move late, because now she allowed bishop e6 into the position, rook a d8, trying to defend everything, holding everything together, but there's just too many pins going on, and here, bishop takes d7, rook takes d7 here, and simply white wins material after this e5 move. The king runs away, but then bishop takes f6 with check. I mean, this is not even the best way here. The best way here to win immediately is to go rook d1, wins immediately on the spot because black needs to take, and after knight takes, it's just winning. But here, Lagno decides to play this bishop f6 move, which is more straightforward, I guess, like comes to your mind more straightforward. And then king c7 was played. e6 will just push the pawns and everything, queen d2 check, but then king b1 getting the king to safety, rook d6, and then here after e7, a really nice move, because black cannot really take the bishop with either of the rooks, because white is gonna promote, and it is unstoppable. Here we have rook e8, but then after bishop e5, pinning this rook, this is just game over, and then after rook takes e7. But here, after this final beautiful touch, rook d1, black resigned, and Lagno is now 3 out of 4, and in the sole lead. This is a beautiful win by her. I mean, Elisabeth, she kind of wasted a couple of moves in the opening by pushing h6, and then I'm not sure if this whether it's her opening preparation or not, but I guess here at least. She does waste a few moves by moving the bishop, and then she made a mistake here by playing knight a6, although Lagno didn't play the best reply here, but then she missed bishop e6 here, which if she had played it, then she would have been completely fine. But, I mean, Elisabeth, she didn't really made any huge blunders, but let's just say that she made a few mistakes or small inaccuracy, and Lagno found most of the best replies and yeah, just won this game beautifully at the very end. So this is round 4 and Lagno is now 3 out of 4, but already the time that I'm recording this video, they have already played 6 rounds. Lagno is now 4 out of 6, still in the sole lead, a half point ahead, and wish her good luck. I mean, there's still a couple of rounds left and she still needs to play extremely well in order to fight for first place. But who knows what will happen. So wish her good luck, and yeah, thank you for watching this game. Hope you guys enjoyed the recap of this game, and thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!